Okay, everybody, part two with the leaf spring. It is 3 a.m. Seems to be a regular thing for me, working on this thing for like 10 plus hours. So I got the leaf spring in. Let me show you guys. And I am tired, by the way, so it's a lot of work cutting and grinding and cutting. Oh, I need to start wearing knee pads too. So I got the leaf spring in. This is 97-485 on the 8-foot bed for the J10. It did bolt right up, just like everybody says, but it did shift the axle, just like I said. So I had to push the axle back just a tiny bit, by grabbing it and moving it just a little bit for the center pin to line up. I had to rebuild or completely build the leaf spring shackle mount up here. So this is brand new. All this is 316 steel. I cut it all myself, welded it all myself. It's basically the same design, or exactly the same design as AMC did it. I just put a larger hole here in the center for more drainage, plenty of room for the shackle. Added these little thingies, which support this thing, when the weight is on it. Yeah, so in order to line this up, because I had to cut off the entire, this piece, this piece, this piece, and that piece, and in order to keep this center thing, or in order to keep this center for the shackle, all you have to do is just bolt this piece up to the shackle, and then to back here, just finger tight, you know what I mean? And in doing so, that makes this shackle straight because it's bolted to the back piece back here. Then you tack weld this piece, that piece, and this piece on. Then you take the bolt and the shackle out because you don't want the shackle rubber to melt as you're welding this. And when you're done, you just pop it in and you torque it. And I believe from when I did the Wagoneer like 6 years ago, these bolts are 60 foot-pounds, I believe. That's what I torqued them at. You want to keep this one loose, though, because the shackle is very stiff. If this is tight, then this shackle is stiff and you can't move it by hand in order to line it up with this leaf spring. So just keep this bolt loose so you can move the shackle, so you can bolt up the leaf spring. Then you tighten them. I take that back. Keep them loose so you can line up this one. Now, this mount I also had to rebuild, at least the lower half. So this section right here and this bottom piece down here is new, as is this piece right here. And yes, I'm giving you the middle finger. So that's all done. The clearances are pretty good. There's enough room right here. If it does squeak or rub right here, I could always just cut this little piece off. Not a big deal. Now, the U-bolts, one thing I didn't account for the long U-bolts, because I got longer U-bolts in case I want to lift this thing, because I'm just going to put blocks underneath this in order to lift it, like 1 or 2 inches if I ever decide to do that. Because this thing doesn't need a crazy lift, not with the tires that I got right now. So, and I don't plan on getting monstrous tires right now anyway. So, the ones that I got were 235, 75, 15, which is basically stock tires. So, slightly larger than stock, but basically stock. One thing I didn't account for, excuse me, was my deep socket only goes so far down, and I had to cut off like maybe 1.5 inches off of all 4 of the bolts, because the problem is it would stop right here and I couldn't get the nut further down, so I had to keep cutting it and cutting it and cutting it until the nut would go down. Now you're wondering why I'm stacking washers right here. These are hardened grade 8 washers, so there's no negative effect for stacking them. Of course, you always retorque everything after 100 miles, then 1,000 miles, etc. when you're doing suspension. But the reason why I stacked 3 washers on here was because with the extra length of the U-bolt, the threading stopped like right here. So like literally right where the top of my fingernail is on the top of this plate. So I had to add a couple washers, 3 washers in fact, so this nut would have enough threading to torque down. That was the other issue. So don't get 9.5-inch long U-bolts for stock springs. Lesson learned. 7.5 still would be kind of short. So because this has about 1.5 inches left up here, I can still put an inch block on here just to lift it up an inch if I want, and the nut would still torque down barely, but there would be enough. So, but anyway, lesson learned, stock height, stick with the 7.5-inch U-bolts, don't get the 9.5-inch. So, anyway, everything is all bolted up, it all lined up perfectly. Another problem was these bolts, everybody online, if you guys are wondering, every single person online says that they're 9/16 with 12 pitch thread, and they're 4.5 inches long. They are not 4.5 inches long. These bolts right here are 4 inches. If this was 4.5 inches, do you see that end of the bolt over here? That right there would be rubbing against the frame right there. Now, you could say, well, put the bolt end over here and have it stick out over there. Well, that's kind of hard to do when you're trying to bolt this stuff up, so you need to put the bolt in this way. At least I had to. So 4.5 is way too long. So 4 inches is perfect for all the shackles, all the mounts on this Jeep. You don't need 4.5. So I was like paranoid and driving around all over the place trying to find 4.5-inch 9/16 bolts, only come to find out that 4 inches worked just fine. Now this bolt right here, they didn't have any more 4-inch bolts in any of the hardware stores. I mean, I drove for hours trying to find them over the course of a couple days, and I couldn't find them. So I got 5-inch bolts right here. It's okay if they're long right there. I had to stack a couple washers again because the threading only goes so far, and then I put 1 washer on the end of this one. But it torqued down, so this is at 60 foot-pounds as well. So you can make it work. Like I said, you just got to stack washers. So a lot of people frown upon that, saying, oh, it's not professional. Well, fuck you. I don't really care. Now, you're wondering, why is that piece of the cross member cut out? Well, for some reason, Jeep decided to make this brake line right here, this rubber brake line, really, really, really short. I've mentioned this before when the bed floor was off before I rebuilt it, and I showed you guys like maybe 3 or 4 months ago that this thing was right here, and the brake line was just straight stretched. I mean, it was like at the max. Putting this leaf spring on here would have ripped the line off. So what I had to do was, because the previous owner, or one of the previous owners in 2006, I actually had the receipt for it in the dash or glove box, redid the brake lines back here, and for some reason they like decided to swirl it around, you know, like make a big U shape and have a lot of extra metal for the brake line instead of making it nice and tight. And that actually worked in my favor. So that's why I was able to cut this off and move the metal brake line back here. And for now, I just zip tied it to this little mount or whatever this thing is from Dodge, from the Dodge bed. And so that's secured enough. And that gave me plenty... sorry if it's upside down. That gave me plenty of brake line, so the axle can flex and everything can move. And no worries. And this is the breather tube. I have no idea where the factory breather tube went on these things. On the Wagoneer, there's like a hole in the center cross member it goes through, but this one, I just zip tied it to the brake line. So the water line for the rear axle is basically at the top of the frame. So anyway, everything is all on. All I got to do is put the tire on, and I am done on this side. Thank God. I started this project at, I want to say 4 p.m. and it is 2 or 3 a.m. right now, so about 10 hours almost. I just noticed the drum right here is a crack. Or it's broken right there. Oh well. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. And just to show you guys the leaf springs, let me move this old one. If I can do this one-handed. I want to show you guys what it looks like compared to the new one. So that's the old leaf spring with the broken springs on it and the rust pushing them apart compared to the new one. Big, big difference. I'm gonna let you guys go. I'm gonna take a quick smoke break, maybe take a bath, and then the weird thing is I'm not tired. I'm just wore out. You know what I mean? I'm just tired of getting up and down on the concrete floor. So I really wish I had a lift. Anyway, you guys have a good night. Thank you.